Hello, everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And I'm excited to be here today. I've got a special guest, and this episode is going to be so much fun. So, without further ado, let me just bring him on. JB Braden, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Julianne. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
I'm excited. Ever since I met you, I've been looking forward to this. At the very least, we're going to have a lot of fun. So, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
A little bit about myself. Okay, great. Well, I am a speaker and speaker coach, international inspirational speaker. I've been speaking for 20 years, and I've been coaching speakers for about half that time. I love working with people. Some interesting things about me. I love horses. I love good food, and I love good wine. As a matter of fact, I used to, because I travel around and speak a lot. And so I have this list of fine dining places, unique places to eat. Because when I'm on the road, I don't like to eat at chain restaurants. I like to find something unique to the area. And so it's very common among my speaker friends. They'll be out somewhere and they'll text me and say, "Hey, anything on your list in this area?" And so that's one of the things I'm known for in my speaker area, in my speaker realm. But no, I love speaking. I love connecting and working with people, helping people create success in their life, and just doing the best they can do. Because my motto is, I want you to show up as the badass superhero you were born to be.
I love that so much. Now, before we get into that, because it's a huge topic, something that you said that I really love is that, that you love good food and you love good wine. And the reason why I love that is because, you're traveling all the time, but that doesn't mean you have to give up. Why not enjoy your food and experience different things? So I love that about you because it would be easier to just go grab something from like Chipotle or whatever, some cheap little place that, instead of sitting down and enjoying yourself, because part of food is the experience of it. Part of drinking wine is the experience of it. You don't need some cheap old box wine. I mean, might as well get some good stuff if you're going to do it.
That's right. That's right. Hey, this is why you and I get along.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, I like that. Because I'm like you. I'm like, I just want to experience something unique, something delicious. Yes. I don't want the tourist experience. I want, the local experience.
It's really fun. It's really fun when you go to a place and you find a unique place to eat. A place that's unique to that area. You can get chain restaurants anywhere, and I rarely eat at chain restaurants anyway because I like finding unique places. The quality of the food, it's just an experience, like you said. Being able to experience that is just something you're not going to get anywhere else as well.
So. Exactly. So, for those people that are watching, they might be thinking, okay, he's a speaker coach. Well, what does that have to do with wellness? And it has everything to do with wellness. And let me explain why I think it was so important for you to be here. Because so many people are afraid of using their voice. Now, whether or not they go on stage, there is an art form to what you do and what you teach. So I would love for you to explain a little bit more about, what do you run into in particular, like issues people have? Because I don't know you would know, but I know so many people that are afraid to go on stage. They're afraid to go in front of people. They're even afraid to speak up for themselves. So what do you see as like a common thread of fear maybe, or what is it?
It is, some of it is fear. And it comes from the stories we tell in our heads. Okay. You know what I'm talking about. And then it's like our minds can write the best soap opera script ever. Okay. And so a lot of it comes from there. But the reason why it has a lot to do with wellness and the reason why is because when you're confident in your speaking, whether you speak on a live stage, a big stage in front of 10,000 people, or whether you're speaking across the table to one person, when you get to where you can effectively communicate what you want to say to people,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be sharing your story, whether it's sharing how you can help them, whether it's learning how to ask questions. Okay. All of those are a big part of speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people miss the boat when they say, well, I don't want to be a speaker. Well, you speak every single day, right? It's the heart of communication. I mean, it has helped me in my marriage, Julianne, okay,
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to communicate effectively so that I don't spend an hour trying to get my point across to my wife. Okay. It's that simple. So learning how to communicate effectively what you want to say can help you in any platform. But here's the thing that a lot of people miss. I always tell people, whether you ever get on a live stage or not,
Mm-hmm.
when you learn to just share your message, whether it can be on a virtual stage, it can be on a Zoom, a webinar, or whatever. But when that happens, you know what really happens that people miss? The confidence level. Okay. Your confidence level soars because you've heard it before. Public speaking is one of the biggest fears of most people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can get to where you're comfortable doing that, then the confidence that you get from that translates into other areas where you can become confident in your life. And so it translates and it transcends your life in other ways.
I think that that's a really important point because how you do one thing is how you do other things. So, it's not compartmentalized.
Right.
And I love that point too about speaking because it's kind of like breathing. I don't care if I want to do it or not, I'm still going to have to do it. So, might as
Right.
well get good at it.
Exactly. Exactly. You never know where life is going to take you. And you're a
Hmm.
prime example of that. I mean, if someone had asked you 3 years ago that you'd be hosting this TV show, what would
Yeah.
you have said, right?
I would, 3 years ago, I didn't even know how to work the Zoom. So, to me, it was like,
Right. Right.
social media, what?
Right.
All of that. Yeah. You just
Yeah.
don't know. That's a really, really good point. That's a really good point. You don't know where life is going to take you. And, that confidence level that you're talking about, how do you, I guess part of it is just getting up and doing it, but how do you, I mean, a lot of people, like you said, they don't even realize that they need to work on their communication. But how do you become aware of something you don't even know you're not aware of? Do you know what I'm saying? That's a good question.
That's that's actually an excellent question. How do you become aware that you need something that you're not aware you need it? That's a great question. And you're not going to know unless you're seeking to grow. That's the
Exactly.
only way you know that you need something that you don't know you need is if you're in
Hmm.
growth mode. Okay.
Hmm.
So,
Exactly.
so if you're looking to grow in areas of your life, then it will become evident that that's something you need to work on. But if you become complacent and you say, I'm good, I don't need to grow, then you won't ever find out.
Exactly. And I think it is too something that you were talking about. It's kind of like asking better questions, not only
Right.
to other people, but to yourself. So, would you say though that even with speaking, it's kind of like you have to know who your audience is and sort of know what it is that they're there for? And because I could sit there and talk about my agenda all day, but that doesn't mean it's going to be effective.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of fascinating. So, what are some things that you think that just a regular person that maybe doesn't think that they're gonna, go up on a stage, what are some things that maybe that they could do to help themselves overcome the fear of just even speaking their truth?
Oh, I love that. I'll tell you one of the best things you can do is tap into your story
Mm.
and embrace it. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, here's the reason why. Because when you can get to where you can share your story, and see, we all have a hero's journey. It's just all of our hero's journey looks different. Okay.
Hmm.
So one of the things that we teach in our workshop is um, how to develop your story to where it shows the whoever you're talking to, whether it be a huge audience, whether it be an audience of 3 people, or you're doing a one-on-one. Okay. But when
Mm-hmm.
you can develop a story and you can share it in a way where it shows how you're ordinary, extraordinary, and share your why, people connect to that. Right. Because it
Mm-hmm.
lends that connection. So let's just say you and I were sitting at a restaurant and we're having dinner. Okay. And we're sipping on a glass of wine, and you ask me a little bit about myself, and I kind of share my story. We're right
Mm-hmm.
there. If you don't remember anything else the rest of the night, you're going to remember that, and we're going to connect over that. Right.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
for anyone out there, I would say, especially when it comes to finding your voice, embrace your story. What is it?
Mm.
What is your hero's journey? Okay. What is it that makes you ordinary? Meaning, hey, I went through this just like everybody else. I mean, for me, I grew up without a father, right?
Mm.
I know a lot of people who didn't. Anytime I share that story of growing up without a father, being angry with him for years. Okay, I was angry with him
Mm-hmm.
for years, right? And then one day I had an epiphany, and I say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to allow um, this anger towards him to keep me from being successful and moving forward. So I did something about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's ordinary part. Extraordinary part is doing something about it, and then for me, growing. Okay. Not using that as an excuse not to succeed, but doing everything that I can to succeed. And then my why comes in from that story of I love helping people achieve success, because
Mm-hmm.
just like me, I could have used that as an excuse. A lot of people do, and I don't want to see people use that as an excuse. So that's just a tidbit of my story. But if we were to sit and talk about stories and, hey, tell me a little bit about your journey, right? And then it's, oh, okay, I connect to that. A lot of times I've spoken on stages and people come up to me and they say, you know, your story really changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they got out of it. But maybe that's all it was meant to get out of it. So you just never know. And so that's what I would say to people: embrace who you are, learn to share your story in a way that people can connect to it. Because especially if you're in a conversation where you're trying to get somebody to work with you, they may not
Mm-hmm.
work with you, but they may remember your story. And then
Yeah.
a year later, they may knock on your door, email you or whatever, and say, "Hey, I remember you telling that story. I want to talk to you." You just never know.
Or send other people your way.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
just never know. I think it's fascinating too, because I've had the opportunity to speak in front of different size audiences, and I'll plan out, and this is what's so funny. I'll plan out and I think something I'm going to say is so profound and I'm so excited, and I'm like, to me it's a mic drop situation, and then afterwards people will come up to me and they'll say, what you said just really, it moved me. It was so amazing. And I'm like thinking, yeah. And then it'll say something I don't even remember saying. It was something just in passing, but it's always been about my story.
Exactly. Right.
Always. It's
Always.
never the mic drop situation. It's always something that I don't think anything up.
Right. Exactly. You just never know what connects with people, but we all remember stories,
Yes.
especially stories that we can relate to, that inspire us, that give us, hope or whatever the case may be, or that make us laugh. Okay. Right. Laughter is one of the great therapies of life. Right.
It is. It
And so,
absolutely is. You know, okay, so my boyfriend or he used to be a stand-up comic,
okay.
and he grew up, and without getting into, spilling his story, but he grew up in a not so healthy environment, in the fact that his dad was a hoarder. And when I say hoarder, I'm not just saying, I mean an actual, like, there could have been a TV show on him, hoarder.
Oh, wow.
And so he wanted to use that in his comedy, but like, how do you make something like that funny? Because the cat had ended up dying. And so it's like, well, you could turn it into Well, we couldn't find him, so he starved to death. I mean, that's more funny than, like, it's kind of interesting how you can sort of, not change things, but make it funny too. So people remember that and they're like, okay, it takes the sting out of your story too. There's certain things that I don't care. Like the fact that my mom passed away, that hurts. I mean, it's been a zillion years, but there's not ever going to be a time where it's not like negative, I guess, in my
Right.
mind. Like, it wasn't a positive experience.
Right.
But
Right.
I can tell like really cool stories about right before she passed away that are funny that
Right.
people are like, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, we have that in common because my mom passed away about 8 years ago. And that's actually part of my story. I kind of started off with that and talk a little bit about what I got from her.
Hmm.
And so I share a lot of that. And so instead of saying, I don't want to talk about my mom, it's like, no, she was a big part of my life. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. And so
Hmm.
it's those types of things you kind of embrace, right?
Exactly. You know, um, there's this saying, and I'm curious what you think of this one. And it's that not everyone gets the right to hear your story. Not everyone earns the privilege of that. What do you think of that?
Not everyone earns the privilege of hearing your story.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's partly true. It goes back to because once you develop your story, you're not just going to go around sharing it with everybody, right?
Yeah.
But there are going to be just when you have it dialed in, then there's going to be then when to share it. Okay,
Hmm.
when you're sitting across someone or sitting in front of or talking in front of a group of people that hey, that's a story I need to share. Okay.
Hmm.
You just know it. I mean, there's a story that I don't share often, right? Because I used to speak in schools, a lot of schools, right? And there's this one story. I mean, I'm talking when I say I've spoken in a lot of schools, hundreds of thousands of schools.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
But there's this one story that I've only shared in 3 schools. And it was because they were ready for it. And I could tell
Mm.
that comes from knowing your audience and having that experience. But I knew I needed to share that particular story because
Hmm.
they needed to hear it. But I don't share it all the time.
No, I love that. I love that because there's a lot of people too who think that throwing the facts about their life out is being vulnerable. And sometimes people just aren't ready to hear all that. It's kind of like, hi, my name is Julianne and I have a terminal disease. Like I don't, I'm just saying, like I wouldn't
Right, right,
necessarily throw that out there, even if
right.
it were true.
This is the thing. What you just said is so important because that's the other thing. That's why it requires coaching. Here's
Hmm.
the reason why. Okay, there's 2 things, and one of the things that we talked about today on the webinar was there's a difference between telling your story and telling how events. Okay, a
Hmm.
series of events. That's the first thing. But one of the things that I find when I'm coaching clients, here's what I'll do. I'll say, "Tell me your story," and I just let them tell it to me, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's what happens. They tell all of these details that's not necessary, but I need them to get it out, right? And then I go back and I tell them the story back to them
Mm.
and share with them here's the relevant points of your story for this particular forum, right?
Mhm.
And that's one of the difficult things for a lot of people is they don't know how to pick out the relevant parts of their story. And it requires maybe sometimes, a lot of times it requires somebody else to be able to say, okay, this is what's going to be relevant for you to share on at this particular time. And so having that outside voice and ear to help them craft that story is also a key thing.
And I think that that's important too, because to get better at sharing things, especially our story, we need feedback. And we're getting feedback, whether it's on a stage or you're talking to someone. So are you willing to hear that, or are you talking at people and like leaving it there and trying to run away?
Right.
It's kind of like getting the last word in, or something like that, as opposed to, I don't know. For me, the most effective times that I've listened to speakers is I felt like they were having a conversation with me, even if they're on a stage. It's not that
Yes.
they're just throwing stuff at me, and it's, I feel engaged. I feel a part of.
Julianne, this is amazing because what you just revealed the art to being a good speaker. Okay.
Mhm.
I'll never forget one of my first speaker coaches, exactly what they told me. Just think of it as you're having a conversation with the audience. Okay. It could be an audience of 3,000 people,
Mhm.
but you're having a conversation with 3,000 people. And
Yeah.
and that's what we teach. When you think about that, that's one of the first things that I learned. So it's
Mhm.
so interesting that you said that, because that's exactly the feedback that I've given. That I have gotten myself is felt like you were just talking to me. Well, I was just talking to you. Just happened to be in a room with 3,000 other people that I was talking to them as well. But when
Yeah.
you can pull that off, when you can make the audience feel like, hey, we're having a conversation with just the two of us, that's the true art to being a good speaker. And I talk a little bit about that in my book that I'm writing as well.
Ooh, you have a book coming out.
I
Yay.
do have a book coming out.
That's exciting. That's definitely exciting.
Yeah, I'm
I
excited
just,
about it.
yeah, I do feel though that speaking is an art form, and it's not really any different. I mean, it's just a different art form than, say, putting paint on a canvas.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
way of expressing, it's a way of communicating something. And usually it is a story, or at least I think it should be a story.
Right.
Because, like you said, it's not as, I don't know. I can read a textbook that will teach me facts. I can go on the internet and read about facts. I don't care about that. I'm not going to remember that. People don't remember that, but they will remember how they feel, or remember that story that resonated. Like you said, it's like, wow, I remember when he shared about his mom, or,
Right. Yeah.
like, I remember how I felt in that same situation. People remember that. They don't remember, 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, they might, but the odds of that over how they felt about that is, yeah, yeah. I think that's really fascinating. And like you said, it could be a huge stage, or just even that one person in front of you.
Right.
It's communicating. It's all about communication. So do you think that people have a problem with being on stage because they think of it differently than communicating one on one, or that they have an issue with communication in general?
I think it depends on the person, right?
Mm.
There's some people that absolutely they probably will never get on a stage, and that's okay
Yeah.
because it's not really for everyone. But
Yeah.
here's what I know, that this is what I love about where we are in the world right now.
Hmm.
Okay, you can create your own stage, and I'll give you an
Mm.
example what I'm talking about. One of the people that I met along my journey of coaching and so forth is a young lady who's very introverted. Okay, and
Hmm.
her thing was, I do not want to get on a stage. Okay, but she heard that you can create your own stage, and so that's exactly what she did. She created a Facebook group. Okay,
Hmm.
and the key thing about her Facebook group is what she does is she puts out these 10-day challenges, or these 15-day challenges, right?
Hmm.
Now she's a single mom, works from home, and she's learned to monetize this. This is her stage. This has become her stage, right? So she
Wow.
created her own virtual stage, but she had to learn how to communicate her message still so that she can be effective on her own virtual stage she created. And then I'll never forget, I had the opportunity to watch her share her story on a live stage, something she never would have done if she hadn't created that virtual stage. Okay. And so that's what I love about it. People think, well, I don't want to do that. I never teach people to do that. I always think, how can I do that in a way that's authentic to me?
Hmm.
Always ask the question how, and not I can't or I don't.
Yeah, that's limiting. That just stops you. Your brain will literally stop. It will not come up with any sort of solution whatsoever. It's like, okay, we're done here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, on that note, we do need to go to commercial break. So we'll be
Okay.
right back in just a moment.
Sounds good.
Well, everyone, like I said, we do have to go to commercials. I know you're having as much fun as I am. And for those of you who are watching us live, hello, hello, hello. And we will be right back in just a moment.
Are you someone who is struggling to move forward because you suffered a loss? Maybe you're even finding it difficult to complete the most basic tasks. Are you looking for a way to start enjoying life again without feeling guilty or the resistance to do so? Spiritual life coach Sarah Stockham saw a need for people who haven't learned how to grieve without putting their entire lives on pause. And so she created a program that solves this issue called Choosing Life Right Now. This program is simple and you can do it on your own. If you are ready to learn how to feel your grief while still being able to smile, to honor the sacredness of what took place as a loss, and yet still continue to live with joy, and if you'd like to take care of your whole being with grace and love, then I'd like to invite you to experience her new program called Choosing Life Right Now. Sarah is currently offering her program for the promotional price of $77, but it won't stay at this price for long. To learn more, check out her website. The address is on the screen.
Now, you can vibrationally align your aura. You can gain a larger and spiritual perspective on life, relationships, God, people, wellness, and money. You can also have moments of meditation and reflection any time of the day. And reading the thrilling, adventurous, and mystical story of Shiga will just add more faith to your daily experience of the mystery of the universe.
Welcome back, everyone. I am excited. I don't want to waste any time. Let's bring our guest back on. JB, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be back.
Yeah, me too. So we were talking a little bit privately beforehand. People, if they want to be able to get a hold of you, you were saying that best way is through LinkedIn, correct?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a direct message, and I'll definitely respond. And we can set up a one-on-one Zoom, or if you're in Colorado, we can set up a one-on-one meeting, and who knows, maybe go have a good dinner.
And some wine. Don't forget the wine.
I never forget the wine.
No, I love that. And then also, you have an event coming up soon.
I do. I have a couple of things that's going on that I'll mention. One of them is we have a 2-day workshop, the Champion Speakers Academy 2-day workshop coming up. The first day is April 2nd, which is a Saturday. And then the second day of that workshop is 30 days later, May 7th. People are like, well, why do you do it 30 days later? You want to know why? Because we have what we like to do is create success in people's lives. And we found that when we do it like this way, we give them a target and a goal and a challenge to book a speaking gig between day 1 and day 2.
I love that.
Yes. And so they actually go out and builds that confidence. And then the next second day they come back and they get to stand and deliver. The first day is about creating this presentation, helping them kind of figure out the problem they solve, the target audience, and putting together the presentation. And then they go out and they book a speaking gig. They have a couple of coaching sessions in between the first 2 days. And then the second day to come back, stand, deliver, get hands-on coaching. So that's a Champion Speakers Academy. You can reach out to me. I'll send you that. But the other thing that I'm really excited about as well, and you may have heard about this, this is through the organization Achieve that I've been involved with for a while. Exactly. As you know, it's been catered toward health and wellness industry. Well, we're launching a Achieve Speaker Pro division where we're really right. We've developed some really, really good things to support speakers. And so whether you've been speaking for a long time, just starting to speak or thinking of speaking, one of the things that we love to share with people is how to use speaking to grow your business. And so through this Achieve Speaker Pro division that we're launching, it's going to allow us to be able to really support speakers. So if you're a speaker out there and you want to know more about that, or if you want to become a speaker and know more about that, definitely reach out, because that's one of the exciting things we have going as well.
And that's the other thing too. And I'm so glad I didn't know about that. So that's really exciting. It makes sense now. But the thing is, especially in health and wellness, how are you supposed to get your message out there if you don't tell anybody?
Exactly. Well, it's really interesting you said that, because when you start to think about it, one of the biggest problems, and I didn't get this, I didn't come up with this, okay? First person I heard say this was Grant Cardone, okay? And then I started thinking about it and how true it is. But the biggest problem for especially entrepreneurs, trainers, you name it, people don't, your target market, they don't know you exist.
Exactly.
Right. And so what are you doing to get it out there that you exist? Here I am. Here's what I have to offer. Here's how I can help you. How do you get in front of your target market? Well, one of the best ways is speaking. And we already talked about, it doesn't have to be on a live stage. We already talked about that, right? And so, but that's one of the best ways to get yourself out there and let the world know that at least your target market know you exist.
And that's the other thing too, that a lot of people who do get out there and say, they don't give any way to reach out to them, or, any sort of what's called a call to action for those who don't really know what that is. It's like a, press here or click here or call here. Right. That's all fine and dandy, but now what? Exactly. Most people don't follow through on their own unless it's made simple for them. So we get halfway there and it's like, oh, wait. And then it stop. It always drives me crazy. Like, that's great that, it's, maybe people know that I'm a personal trainer, but do they know how to get a hold of me?
You've just wasted all that time. Okay.
Exactly.
It's very interesting because people are afraid to say to them, hey, here's what I have to offer. And if it's a good fit for you, I want to work with you. Yeah. It's okay to tell people you want to work with them.
It is. That's so funny to me. A lot of people don't. And you know what? I was guilty of that too. It was like people were supposed to magically know. It's like, it's like a woman saying, well, you should know what's wrong, or you should know what I'm feeling. Excuse me. No,
It doesn't
we're
work
not
that way.
mind readers.
It doesn't work that way, right?
No, and especially because they don't know if your schedule's full either.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
do want
No.
to say, Julianne, that going back to the workshop, although we have we have two versions of the workshop, by the way. The one with the 30 days in between is strictly for local, but we
Mhm.
do have a back-to-back workshop for people who want to fly in, spend a couple of days with us, spend 2 days with us. So we if you want questions or have questions about that particular one, you can reach out to me. The link is in there. Reach out to me. Or you can just email me directly at jbspeaks24k@gmail.com.
Why don't you pop that in the chat too, the private
Okay.
chat, and we'll pop that up on the screen as well, just so that people have that as
Yeah,
information.
you can email me directly.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got a lot of things going on. Plus, you got this book coming out and all kinds of stuff. So,
Oh, yeah.
yay! I'm excited for you. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm
it's
excited. We got some good things going.
yeah, exactly. Here, I'm gonna just copy and paste this one right now and pop it out there for people to see as well. Here we go.
And if you
Boom!
email me, put in the subject line something exciting and funny, like "Ooh, I seen your Golden Dome on TV" or something like that. So
I love that. That's so
I
good.
love things like that. So don't be afraid to give me something to catch my attention.
I love that. That is really, it's so much more fun than just hi.
Right. Right.
Humor. Oh my goodness. Humor is so important. I think that a lot of people, going back to like speaking and humor in particular, you know, you can get your message across, even if it's something serious.
Mhm.
It's easier to digest if you can add some humor to it. It doesn't mean you dumb it down. It doesn't mean, that you make light of it. But, like the whole cat thing dying, with, my boyfriend's jokes and all that. It might be an easier way for people, take the sting out of the message so they can hear it more instead of just being like, oh, that's too much. Because a lot of people, sometimes turn off their ears when things get hard. Or you
Yeah.
say something like like cancer, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's scary. I don't want to hear any more about that. Cause like they're gonna catch it somehow by like even listening to what you're saying.
Right. Right.
So
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that because just go back to the cat dying, right?
mhm.
Okay. There's probably a handful of people listening to your story that can relate to that.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes if they see how you handled it and that you've
Mhm.
kind of used it as a motivation to move forward, that's exactly what they needed. You just never know.
Mhm.
And so being able to now laugh about it, okay, as a part of your journey and
Mhm.
kind of make light of it a little bit, maybe gives them permission to be able to do the same. You just never know.
And I think that that's such a good point too, because we are taught, and let's just even take like the grieving process, for example.
Right.
We're taught that we need to be solemn, and we're taught that we need to be super sad. And I've lost a lot of people that are really important to me. And the thing is it's very, for the longest time, I would feel guilty anytime that I felt happy or I felt like laughing. But that's not how grief should be. I mean, it's a roller coaster, first of all, but it's okay to laugh. Like,
It
I
is.
love telling the story. The last thing and I don't tell this one very often, but it's really funny. And it was the last thing my mom said to me before she died. She was, I was 13, mind you. And she was like in an induced coma. And the nurse said to me, you need to let her know it's okay for her to die. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So I do. And I just said, Mom, I'm like, I'm 13 years old and I'm sad. And I'm like, Mom, it's okay. It's okay if you die. Hand to God, she sat straight up, medically induced coma, and says, I'm not gonna, and screaming, I'm not gonna effing die. Like, hold on. And then straight back down.
Oh my.
And that was traumatizing at the time. I'm not going to lie, but it is so funny. It is so funny because one, let's think about this for a second. One, I now know she could hear everything I was saying, so that's a bonus. And
Right.
two, that's funny when you think about it. Like, how cool is that she even like that's how strong she was.
That's
She could
hilarious.
wake
I love
herself
that.
up enough to do that and then lay back but I will say this, I don't think that nurse ever told anybody else to say that ever again.
I'm sure she didn't. That's an amazing story, Julianne. I love that.
Isn't that hilarious though? To me, it's funny, but it took me a long time to get to the point where it was funny. And and that's okay.
Well, that's part of the process as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Allowing yourself to go there and get to that point is also very important when it comes to being able to share your story. Because I'm sure right after that you wouldn't have been able to talk about it, but now that time has passed and you realize the power of that and how funny that was.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
How it's spoken to your life as well, right?
Yeah, there's so many bonuses to that, that fact that I now know that she literally heard everything I said to her. So, all the talking to her while she was out, I know she heard me.
Let that be a lesson to some of you out there.
I know. Woo! So be careful what you say. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think that finding your voice and whether, something you said too, that I think is important is creating your own stage or finding your own stage. It doesn't have to be literally, like you said, in front of thousands of people or even 100 people or 10 people. It could be, at, for example, AA, you could be sharing your story there. You don't know who you're going to be helping by sharing what's going on with you. You have no idea, but it could really genuinely help somebody and yourself. Like people underestimate too, like talking about it. When you say that sometimes, I mean, after a while, it becomes second nature and it's not, but if you can keep on looking at it with fresh eyes, I would think that you would still learn stuff about yourself as well while you're doing it and sharing it.
You do. Well, the thing is, the more you share it, it's kind of a process of helping you get past it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and helping you be okay with it, right?
Yeah.
Which is a really, really big deal, by the way. Okay, and going back to what you were saying made me think of something, because you were just talking about going back and it can be any stage,
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. People don't think about this. Here's something that people don't think about: creating your own stage. We always talk about it in our workshops, live stages and virtual stages. Okay. And I'm just going to throw out some different virtual stages for you. As a matter of fact, what we're doing right here is a stage.
Mm-hmm.
This is your stage, Julianne. Most people don't see it that way, but it is. It's a stage, right?
Yeah.
A webinar is a stage. If you're doing online training for a small group of people, that's a stage that you've created, right? If you're on a podcast, whether you host a podcast or you're a guest on a podcast, that's a stage. So if you want to create a stage and that stage is a podcast, you've created a stage. And so it's just broadening your perspective on what a stage looks like, right? And so we try to help people do that. You can create stages, and it's limitless what you can do when you start to think outside the box.
Exactly. I just think that that's so important. People limit themselves without even realizing that they're limiting themselves. I'm guilty of it too. I mean, that's why I can talk about it, because I can see it. So I wouldn't be able to see it if I wasn't doing it.
Right.
But everybody has something to share. And to me, something that and I don't know if this is something that you would agree with or not, and I'd love your opinion, but for me, if I were ever to get nervous, or like if I'm going to go out in front of people, for example, I realize that I'm thinking about myself.
Yeah.
And when I'm thinking about myself, of course I'm scared, because I'm making it about me instead of being of service, because I'm going out there to share, to be of service to somebody else, it's for them. It's not for me. And I think that when you take yourself out of the equation and stop making it about you, it makes it a lot less scary to share what you want to share. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly, because it's not always about you, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I find myself saying to a lot of people, especially when we go through things. Think about it, we all go through things, right? And sometimes we go through things and we have no idea why we went through it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I always tell people this: it may not be meant for you to know why you went through it. Okay. Sometimes the sole purpose of us going through something is so that we can help somebody else get through it. And we
Mm-hmm.
may not even have met that person yet. It may be a
Exactly.
grandkids that you don't even know yet. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is not to worry about that. Our job is to say, how can I get past this so that I can be prepared to share with somebody else? So the point to
Mm-hmm.
what you were saying, when you go out there and you're feeling nervous or whatever, it's about somebody out there in the audience. Somebody out there needs what I have to share.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't care if it's one person, and you just don't know. And so when you start to think like that and like, okay, I've got to go do this because it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
Someone needs to hear this to get to the next chapter in their life. I don't have to know who it is to know that that's possible.
And that's the thing too, that people don't realize there's always somebody watching. There's somebody watching you all the time. They're
Right.
seeing how you do it, or even on social media. You know, I have changed and grown so much in the last 2 years, for example, but even in the last 8 in particular has been exponential growth. And you know, I'll post things on social media, and then somebody reached out to me not that long ago and said, you know, I just wanted you to know that even though I don't comment, I have been watching your story and I am inspired by you. And I just thought, whoa. I had no idea.
And you don't. That's the
Yeah.
thing. There's people that have heard my story and that it has changed their life that I'll never hear from. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people
Exactly.
that I've had the opportunity to come up and say, "Hey, that really changed my life." You don't know, which is why you get out there and then you be true to what your calling is. Get out
Mm-hmm.
there, serve the people that you're meant to serve, and let it land the way it lands. And just believe that the people who need it are getting it.
Yes, I love that. I just think that's so important because life is so much more meaningful when we are sharing ourselves with others and helping others, and not because I know that my life was really tiny when it was all about me and
Right.
what's in it for me.
Yeah. Well, we can only go so far in life if we just depend just on us.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we only know what we know.
Hmm.
And if we're not out there seeking and learning, surrounding ourselves with what I call ass kickers, people who really can help us grow,
Yeah,
then we don't really learn more, right?
yes,
Here's the other thing:
exactly.
when we put ourselves out there and we make a mistake or we fail,
Hmm.
that's how we learn,
Exactly.
right? That's how we get better. And so I have this saying that one of my mentors say, you know, says, I cannot fail. I can only learn and grow.
I like that.
Yeah. And when you start to have that mentality, then you go out there and you do. Okay. Because you
Hmm.
know that even if you try something and it fails, then it's just, well, all you've done is really learn what doesn't work.
Exactly.
And now you're that much closer to getting to where you want to go.
Well, the other thing too is it, you know, sometimes I think about it as like I think about energy, like the energy behind something.
Yeah.
It doesn't always come back the way you expect it to. So just because it is, you know, like I might, for example, spend money on an ad and I don't get the, you know, expected result from that. It doesn't mean that that money's lost. It's just coming back in a different form, in a different way.
Right.
And if I always think about it like that, then all of a sudden it makes life so much more fun and like a game
Right.
as opposed to, oh, I lost, I can't I can't believe that. Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
love that. Well, what you just described is being open, okay?
Mm.
Instead of being so tied to your expectations, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we always have these expectations of how we want things to go instead of just, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to plan this, but I'm open to however it develops.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's so important. And I had a coach who just said that. He's like, when I was starting my business, he said, don't get too attached to the way it looks because it probably won't end up being what you think it will.
It usually never does.
And at the time, I had no idea what he was talking about. Now I do.
Right.
You just don't know. It's like I might want to sell something, but if that's not what people want or need, then I need to tailor, how I'm being, because it's all fine and dandy if I want to sell something, but if nobody's buying it, that means nobody needs it. Nobody wants it. So how am I really helping anybody?
Right. Yeah. That's a good
So,
point. That's a very
yeah.
good point.
So we are running low on time. I'm just curious. I want to make sure that people can get a hold of you before we get to the very, very end.
Okay.
So to reach out to you directly, they can email you, and they better put something funny in the subject.
Something, an attention grabber of something.
Attention grabber. I like that. And can you mention again also, you have, there's 2 different events that are coming up.
Right. Like we have the Champion Speakers Academy 2-day workshop coming up. First day is April 7th. If you want to know more about that, hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll send the information to you. And then if you want to find out a little bit more about the Chief Speaker program that we're launching for all things speakers that want to, hey, if your goal is to be great on stage, no matter the stage, this is the thing for you. So reach out to me and we can get you going.
I love that. And we do have a couple of moments left. So I'm just curious, is there any other, I don't know, thoughts, ideas, even maybe a tip or something for the audience that you'd like to share?
Oh, wow. A tip. Here's what I say. I stole this from John Maxwell.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of years ago, he was being interviewed on his 70th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And somebody asked him, well, how have you sustained success so long? And he said, years ago, one of my mentors and coaches told me, he said, look, if you don't do anything else in your journey, you commit to personal development, daily personal development. Okay. That when you want to talk about wellness, that, and you get to define that for yourself, but committing to personal development daily is one tip I'll make sure that you all hear. Make sure you commit to some type of personal development.
No, and I think that that's actually so important. There's one thing I want to add to that too is, and I think that this is interesting too, and it's an idea that my mentor just taught me, and it was that, you can only grow for so long before you need to expand. Like there's only,
Yeah.
And I think that is so important. At what point do you start sharing your fruits?
Right. Yes. Right.
Because, you can take and grow and take those nutrients, but at some point you need to share that fruit.
Exactly. And that's the beginning of it. You got to have something to share.
Yes, exactly. So you got to grow first.
Right. And so having that personal development, hey, when you start to focus on that, you always have something to give somewhere, somehow, because you're always filling your cup.
Exactly. Well, JB, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been more fun than even I thought it would be. So thank you.
Well, it's been a blast for me as well, Julianne. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
You got it.
And everyone, that is all the time that we have. So we will have a happy weekend and we'll see you next week.